also check your voters registration, we check your certificate of good conduct, we check your tax status. There are several levels of checks. Apart from that, we conduct interviews with the candidates in which we ask them about their connection with the constituency they're interested in, their political bias, their affiliation to the party manifesto, etc., etc. But this is our level of checks within Jubilee. After all is said and done, it still has to go before the IEBC. Now, the same package of documents is taken with one additional document, the certificate of nomination. And you then present this document to the IEBC alongside all your other documents evidencing your bona fides, your eligibility to vote, your citizenship, etc. And IEBC finally will issue with a certificate saying, we've checked everything, what Jubilee saw is correct or what ODM saw is correct, and you are now given a certificate by IEBC confirming that you are the flag bearer for the election on 7th November.
Yeah. But why isn't the candidate sure? Why not just say, yes, I am?
Well, you know, I didn't listen to the interview, so I'm hearing it from you. Sometimes a candidate who's presenting his papers, perhaps it was today, a candidate who's presenting his papers today might think that it's better the voice comes from IEBC. There's been a lot of speculation, and you know, in politics, part of the speculation also means that there's a lot of interest in the candidate, which is a good thing. So, Mariga may have wanted to leave it to IEBC to answer this question once and for all.
We don't have the exact date. He registered this year. It doesn't matter, as I indicated, it doesn't matter if he registered yesterday, last week, or last month, or in January. What matters is he has applied for registration, and the Constitution says that so long as a Kenyan has applied to be a registered voter and he qualifies, it is the role of the IEBC to ensure that that person is not denied his or her rights. The way forward is very easy. We have a constitution. The IEBC itself has a dispute resolution mechanism. We will file our complaint with the commission or the IEBC within the next 7 days. We'll have a verdict from the commission, and from there we still have the courts. So we still have an opportunity.
The standoff of the day, IEBC has disqualified McDonald Mariga from contesting in the upcoming Kibra by-election, and we're looking at what essentially this means for Jubilee. And indeed, that by-election, we are speaking to Gabriel Mudhuma, who's a political analyst. We're also speaking to Dunstan Omari, who is a political analyst stroke lawyer, and we're picking his legal mind as well in this whole conversation. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with me. Mudhuma, so just before you came in, we were speaking to Omari, and he was saying, this is a plan just to popularize Mariga. At the end of the day, his name is going to be there. At the end of the day, probably, by the Omari says he specifically doesn't even need to campaign, looking back at what happened to Kibaki. And he says this is not the first time that we've gotten a candidate whose name is missing in the voters register. And they alluded to the fact that former Prime Minister Raila Odinga also did not get his name. The difference is Raila Odinga did not get his name when he was going to vote, not at the vetting process. So what are your thoughts about the fact that he seems to think this is the plan?
Well, thank you, Linda. Well, I think you can see the weather in Nairobi, so I'll do this very quickly so I can escape the cold weather. But well, I don't think the statement to popularize Mariga is a statement that I would use. I mean, Mariga is already popular. You know, we all know who he is. Many Kenyans do know who he is. So I don't think there's a plan to popularize him, if you will. Could be, you know, the plans could be something else, but I don't think it's about a popularity contest at this point. Well, I think I've just had the SG talk about them going through the entire process to actually ascertain the very fact that Mariga presented the documents that needed to be presented, because actually I had taken a very serious flare or a serious flack on Jubilee, because I thought they would have actually, or rather they had a very good modality from the onset to ensure that all the paperwork that Mariga presented were all in a row, and they were actually, he was actually clear to be nominated as the Jubilee candidate for Kibra. But having heard what the SG has just said, it just tells you, and I think Dunstan may be able to elaborate on this one, that we are actually being thrown into a pool of legal jargon, if you will. So we have to wait and see what the dispute mechanisms are going to be put within IEBC, and what the party is going to push forward. This is Jubilee, to ensure that Mariga continues to contest for this seat. I think it's going to take, or has already taken, a legal angle at this point. So we are just going to see our, rabble up through the legal documents that are going to be brought forward.
No, obviously, it's going to take a legal dimension. The registrar told them, guys, you have the option of a tribunal, and I know they also have the option of going to the courts. Muduma, this is a candidate that was largely fronted by individuals allied to, quote-unquote, Jubilee, quote-unquote, Tanga version. What does this mean for Deputy President William Ruto, now that you don't think this is a plan, this is a game, this is something that was put up just to get him the votes?
I would like to believe the narrative that he was a candidate that was fronted by Jubilee. Whether it was the Tanga or Kieleweke, then Jubilee, I think they have to clear that air. But if there are any, there were plans within Jubilee, then, I don't know how, the part that you've just mentioned, Kieleweke, or Tanga rather, are going to take it. But, I've always thought for a party, you go for the candidate who you feel can win. Most of the time we talk about somebody who will represent the virtues or the values of the party, but I think sometimes that takes the back burner. You go for the candidate who you are sure will win the ticket for your party. So again, if we were looking for the candidates that presented themselves, probably Jubilee realized Mariga was, probably the best person who was carrying that mantle to be able to win the Kibra seat for the Jubilee party. Whether there were, different factions within Jubilee, then I think that is for Jubilee to bring out. But if what you've just stated is correct, then on this one, Tanga takes a beating.
Omari. Dunstan Omari?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Very well, very well.
Okay, so Muduma doesn't think this is a plan, and he says, yeah, it's taken a legal battle, and yes, this is going to be a hit for Jubilee. Doesn't believe there are two factions of Jubilee. Do you believe there are two factions of Jubilee?
There will never be two functions of Jubilee.
Factions.
There is only one function of Jubilee that has given Mariga a ticket called Jubilee, and Mariga is carrying the ticket of the president's party. Anybody trying to associate him with the deputy president, anybody trying to associate him with anybody, he does not have the URP ticket. Legally and perception-wise, the president cannot run away from campaigning for Mariga, so long as he's carrying the ticket of Jubilee. The president is in the business of competing to gain more members of parliament in parliament.
No, but Omari...
So when you look at the deputy president...
Omari, you saw the back and forth when that list was coming out, some distancing themselves from it. Come on, let's be honest here.
I'm telling you, politicians don't see the president from being the executive head of state. The president is the topmost politician in this country. This is party politics. This is not about national issues. The president will take a partisan role when it comes to defending or campaigning for his member, is the party. So he's the principal head of Jubilee. The deputy president being the political animal in this country in terms of politics, we are likely to see a bruising battle. And within a very short time, Linda, you'll see the right prime minister being driven into this mark. It is politics. It's party politics. The question is about Agenda 4. The questions about the legacy are not in party politics. We are likely to see all the brigade who is likely to campaign against the party that sponsored him to parliament. You can't. So the president himself will have to lead the battle to support Mariga. So in my own view, when we look at the composition of the IEBC, there is a perception that the IEBC commissioners were half Jubilee, half or three-quarters Raila Odinga. Okay. So the question is it not going to be the narrative? I'm telling you, Linda, this is a political contest. It is not about a legal contest. Anybody looking at it from the prism of legalness and legalese is getting it wrong. We are likely to see serious political and tectonic moves within a very short time. And as I've said, my analysis is to lock in every Luhya vote in Kibra. The Luhya vote is the largest constituency in Kibera. How do you consolidate it from Raila Odinga, who has been having it?
How do you know? Omari, hold on. How do you know the Luhyas have the largest number?
The IBC report and the census reports will tell you.
Which census? Dunstan, we've just had a census.
It might not be true. The census we have and the records that we have, the director of statistics can tell you if they are not the leading, then they have a big constituency. Then two, when you see Anthumbi there, where do you have the Mount Kenya vote going to go? So we are having a constellation of the Luhya and the Mount Kenya region fronting Mariga. What will happen? I'm telling you, this is about ethnic mobilization of votes can never go away. It is unconstitutional. It is what Kenyans don't want to say, but that is the way to get representation in this country. The ethnicity card is a very critical thing in that matter.
And that's the saddest bit about the politics in Kenya, that it always goes down to the ethnic note. Mudhuma, if you can hear me, so former Prime Minister Raila Odinga had a handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta, and from there was relative calm in the country, and there's this perception right now that things are okay, moving on well in Kenya because of that handshake. But then this by-election, there are those who thought that perhaps Jubilee would not field a candidate, putting in mind that the late MP came from ODM, they did. And there are those who seem to think that perhaps this will test how solid that friendship is between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. What are your thoughts?
Well, Linda, I think it would be a disservice to bring in the handshake to by-elections, or the election for that matter.
Oh, trust me, Mudhuma, listen.
Severally.
Listen, there will be campaigns.
Yes.
There are two sides to this. There is ODM, there is Jubilee, there's ANC, and everyone wants their candidate to win.
Of course, of course. So that's why I'm saying it's a disservice to bring in the handshake really into this. You saw when Jubilee did not field, if I may remember correctly, they did not field a candidate in Embakasi South. Did ODM win that seat? No, they didn't. So I think it would be wrong, again, to assume or, predispose that the handshake means that, in everything that was held by ODM, that's how things should remain, or even whether a seat was held by Jubilee, that's how things should remain. I don't think that would be the correct position of it. What I'd expect, because this seat actually means a lot to ODM. Not primarily because it was, in the later years was held by the late Ken Okoth, who went to do a tremendous job in transforming Kibra. Yeah. But it is also because it was held, and it means a lot. It is very close to the leader of ODM, Honorable Raila Odinga. So this seat means a lot. If Jubilee, by any chance, or ANC or any other party were to go with this seat, I think it would hurt him more than anybody else. So I can guarantee you, and I can tell you from where I'm standing, I know for sure ODM are going to burn the midnight oil to ensure that this seat remains in ODM. But then again, the machinations are already on the ground, with Jubilee trying to field somebody who is very popular, somebody like Mariga. Owalo is also not a lightweight.
Yeah,
so, and Amani are also going to put also a spirited fight to see whether they can get this seat. There are also other candidates, the likes of Martin Andati.
Imran Okoth.
Everybody is trying. Imran Okoth as well. Everybody is trying to do their best to win this seat. But I think, Linda, we need to run away from the fact that just because there's a handshake, everything else should, mirror the fact that, everything balances out. I don't think that's it. We need to have stiff competition when it comes to elections. I was actually happy today that I saw a photo going around, and I give kudos to these people. I saw Jubilee and a faction of ODM. They are doing campaigns, and when they met at a crossroad, they actually waved and saluted each other, and they went on to their peaceful campaigns. I think this is what we need to see. Competition always does not need to warrant conflict. So I think we are still seeing an element development of mature politics. But then I go back to what I had Dunstan talk about when he named, when he's talked about that we may be actually heading back to the tribal directories. I'll bet that the fact, I bet that may be true. Linda, it's the high time we start looking at other things, and this actually brings out the spirit of the late Ken Okoth. You saw the kind of work that he did. Yeah. I would like to believe that he did not do it for the community that he came from. He did it, when he opened up schools, the libraries, the whole, 9 yards that he did in Matters Maendeleo. I'd like to believe that he did this for the people of Kibra. It did not matter which tribe, or they came from. So I think that's the kind of legacy that I would expect the next person coming in to be able to deal with. So again, let's not try and pigeonhole people into the tribes that they come from. I know it is sad that we talk about this in this day and age, but I'm just hoping the voters of Kibra will look beyond the tribe and elect somebody who will actually continue the legacy of the late Ken Okoth. Yeah, because for those who knew the late Ken Okoth, there's tremendous work that he did in Kibra. Oh, a lot. Yeah, most of them are hoping that whoever it is that will get this seat will continue and carry on the mantle. Omari, finally, on this issue in Kibra, your final thoughts? Because I want to bring in another issue of Wiper.
My final submissions on the issue of Kibra is that Jubilee wants to show Raila Odinga that they can take Bondo from him. Then they will be very comfortable. That is the only issue. That the question is, can a candidate take a seat, inherit Raila's seat? That is a battle for life. Similarly, Raila Odinga will want to take the Gatundu seat to show that he has a national appeal. So this is a question about 2022. We are likely to see bullets flying left and right.
Officially, campaigns for 2022, I know they're already there, but right now they're actually picking up from where you sit, and they will not stop anytime soon. Omari?
Yes, I didn't get you, sorry.
No, just listening into you, I know you've said that Raila Odinga would like to prove that he can take Gatundu, and this other side would like to prove they can take Bondo. So essentially, the campaigns are already here, whether we like it or not, up to 2022, pitting both sides. But, Mudhuma, let me pick your mind on something else that happened today. So Wiper party had a meeting, and at that meeting, there was an announcement that Prezo was going to be their candidate. So the official Twitter handle actually tweeted saying Prezo will be their candidate. But then some of our reporters actually called Wiper, and then they distanced themselves and said, no, it's not for now. It is probably for 2022. But the Twitter handle had already tweeted. I mean, really, what's all this?
You have to remember that Wiper is still causing with NASA, but this time it's not NASA that's running for the Kibra seat, it's ODM. Whether Wiper decides, I also saw the very same thing before they came out and recanted that was not the position. But then again, we need to be alive to the very fact that most of these parties, ANC, Wiper, ODM, Jubilee, they are starting to look at, at 2022 with very close lenses. I mean, it's only, 3 years away. I don't know whether this is the time we should be doing politics. But again, such things don't go away. You already have people who started eyeing various seats. You've had so many people saying, or being assumed that they'll be running for various offices, including those of the gubernatorial seat. So this is not something far-fetched. And sometimes I think it's good for our democracy when somebody has a vision of, the next 5 or 10 years where you want to be running. I mean, that should actually be commended. But that should also not interfere with what I call the development record. Actually, Linda, I think we had taken a very good trajectory before we started getting all these shenanigans. But, back to the seat, the Kibra seat, I think Dunstan Omari is right in this, on this effect when he says it's actually a seat that is very dear to the various parties, mainly ODM that has controlled it for quite a long time. And it is also quite good when I saw the other day when the deputy president was going to Moinairobi Girls And he was able to talk to the youth of Kibra, and he told them that they recognize the work that Ken Okoth did. So I'm glad they are not taking lightly the kind of work that Ken Okoth did. And this is what I would like to be mirrored. And many Kenyans will tell you, including those that are going to be voting in Kibra, they would like somebody who continues with that record that the late Ken Okoth left. And he set the bar too high, which is good. One thing, you know, he came from Kibra, he understood, you know, the problems that continue to ail the people of Kibra. So I think I hope, really, it is going to be what the people of Kibra, you know, will be yearning for.
Dunstan Omari, the late Kibra Member of Parliament, Ken Okoth, left shoes to be filled. They seem to be very big. So the essentials, what kind of person do you think Kibra now deserves, looking at the history of Ken Okoth and the work that he's been able to do, that is acknowledged by everyone who knew him?
Linda, there is a paradigm shift that people are not noticing. The first type of people who are elected, whether presidential or what, were serious government top bureaucrats. It moved on to people who had criminal cases. Anybody who was arrested and charged became electable because the argument was he was being arrested and being charged because of fighting for the interest of people. We are now having the next generation of celebrities, the Prezos, the Jaguars, the Chichopefu guy. We are seeing the president of Liberia. We are seeing DJs becoming presidents. So there is a paradigm shift to talent-based people who are going to take over leadership, the dancers and the musicians. So what we are now likely to see, the question about service delivery that Ken Okoth did might not be the question of who is going to be elected. The battle has been put on two people. One, a celebrity called Mariga. Two, a former party bureaucrat called Owalo. And third, a blood relative who thinks that he will inherit his brother's seat. So the question of inheritance seems to have died. And that is why there is Anthumbi on the other side saying, if it's about a question of inheritance, I have Okoth's son on this side. So my point is, the shoes Ken Okoth left will only remain in the annals of history. The reasons why the voters will go to the ballot on 7th will be based, one, on ethnicity, two, on the celebrity status, three, on the mood of that day, and fourth, what position does Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, and William Ruto do to the candidates that they are supporting. It will not be about the record of Ken Okoth.
I hear you, and that is the perfect point to end the big story this evening. A very big thank you to Dunstan Omari and Gabriel Mudhuma as well for being part of the big story. Thank you for your time, and as well our lead reporter this evening, Jeff Kirui. This has been the big story. I'm Linda Ogutu.